Hello fantastic people, I hope you are doing great. In this tutorial we'll be creating a customization system. This will be pretty long tutorial, but there is quite a lot that we'll actually cover. So we'll start by creating a system without the UI that will be able to test inside the editor. And we'll be able to adjust all the sprites, so different types of hair, different types of eyebrows, maybe nose and ears and this type of stuff, and of course the colors. The interesting thing over here is that you see we have multiple elements, like for example nose, which has obviously separated from the shape of the head or from the ear, but still keeps the color updated together with the rest of the face. So this is one of the interesting features we'll implement. And then we have also similar thing going for all the hair, brows, and so on. Then on top of that, we'll create this UI. So everything we create step by step. We don't skip any elements unless it's like literally repeating the same steps 10 times. Like for example, I'm showing how to set up this one and this one, but then setting up the third one myself. Similarly here, I'm showing some stuff, but then speeding up a little bit just to do not bore you with the same stuff where we don't discuss or learn anything. Then we have the randomize button, which allows us to create random beautiful characters. And then when we press done, you see at this moment we are in the sample scene. Once we click done, we move to another scene and see that this character is kind of persisted between different scenes. So I think this is pretty neat. Besides that, of course, we cover quite a lot of other stuff in terms of coding, setup, events, building UIs. I try to, as I said, do not skip anything. So I think even if you are beginner, maybe not total beginner, but if you are a beginner, you opened Unity a few times and you coded something simple, you should be able to follow all the steps. Also, important thing, if you would rather get all the files and all the code, you can get it all from my Patreon. So you can simply go to patreon.com/ptit and everything there is available for my patrons. Not only, of course, this tutorial. I have some other tutorials. I had already some big tutorials like the building system or the inventory system, and all of the code is there. All of the graphics and this type of stuff. Also, I'm trying to regularly add stuff that I don't add anywhere else. So for example, recently I had the shader tutorial. This shader is there if you'd rather use it instead of creating it yourself. And the same is true for this type of longer tutorials. Sometimes I'm running also small polls where you can influence how the channel is developed, how it grows, and so on and so on. And of course, whenever I'm creating games or something like that, you can also be involved in that process a little bit more. You may share your ideas and I will try to incorporate them sometimes to the game, and so on. So I think it is worth having a look there. I would really appreciate that. Without further ado, let's start making the customization system. So first of all, we have to have prepared some sprites. Over here in the sprites folder, I have multiple ones. Let me just show you an example one. So over here I have the eyebrows, and you see I have them nicely one under the other. Basically, I have here all the browse options that I will be using. Important thing over here is, you see they are in the grayscale. So basically I'm starting from a white and then adding some shadows with a little bit darker gray. I'm doing that for all of those different customizations options. So for example, over here I have eyes, over here I have different head shapes and this type of stuff. So this is pretty straightforward. Now you may be wondering why I am doing them in the white color. The reason is very simple. So let me just drag an example head over here. So here we have one of the sprites, and over here on the right we have the sprite renderer. And you see one of the options over there is the color. So when we change the color, I think it is multiplied by the color of the of the original sprite. So for example, if I select, I don't know, nice skinish kind of color, maybe something like that, you see, it will look all right. And then you can go really crazy with it too. So if we want to have an orc or a undead or something like that, we can very easily achieve it using just the color setting. So we don't have to create different types of sprites like with all different options, and this speeds up the process significantly. Okay, so one important thing is you see the dark part, so the black is not affected at all. And that's, as I said, because I believe the values, the colors are multiplied by each other. So white is 1. So over here, you see if I select this color over here, I believe it will be exactly the same color over here, exactly. You see, but this color over here is already a multiplication of the gray and this blue. So if I select this one, you see it's already not the perfect blue I have selected, but rather a little bit different color. So that's the reason why we do that. Now you may be wondering also why I have them why I have all the customizations options one under the other instead of, for example, like grouped free or something like that. The reason is because when you slice the sprites, so for example, let's take the noses, you see over here I have the sprite mode set to multiple. From other important settings, I have filter mode set to point no filter, which works very well if you have kind of pixely graphics. So if you, for example, if you don't want very smooth borders and this type of stuff like anti-aliasing, the filter mode is best when it's set to point no filter. Now I click the sprite editor and you see over here I have all those noses. So basically all those sprites are sliced using the automatic slicer. So over here, and that's what it created for me. Now, this not only creates the slice around or the sprite, but also gives it a name. So for example, over here I have the nose options _0. And if I add another option below, so somewhere over here, this will not really change anything. So those previous will stay as they are. There will be just new one added. If you try to group them and you misplace them a little bit, so you put one a little bit higher, a little bit lower, and so on, so on. So what may happen basically, the order will change. And this may mess up everything that you have set up previously. So over here, you will see no problem. Everything will slice nicely. But for example, the nose options 2 will become nose options 3. And basically what will happen when you have the sprites in-game already used, basically they will be replaced. And this is definitely not something we want. So one more tip when it comes to slicing. So for example, over here, you see I have those, or maybe let's open the eyes options. So those eyes are obviously in pairs, and that causes a little bit of problem with automatic slicing. So if I would try to slice them automatically, you see only the glasses would be coming as one piece, and all of those would be individual eyes. You may sometimes maybe want that if you want to really go crazy with customization options and allow the player to have different eyes on the character. But this is definitely not something I want to do. So basically, instead of that, what I've done, I literally just slice them manually. So just try to be as close as possible to the actual sprite, so to do not grab any extra space, something like that. And I just repeated it for all of the customization options. Now I'm going to click revert, just so I have it done as before, and just close it. Now, and I think from the theory, there is maybe one more thing. Okay, so instead of doing it directly on the sprites like that, we'll be creating some wrapper objects. Let me show you what I mean and why is that. So first I will have an empty object called head. And I want it at the 0, 0, 0 position. Pretty easy. Now inside of it, I'm going to have some customization element, for example, head. or head shape, just to make it a little bit clearer. Shape, yes. Now, inside of that object, I'm going to have the element renderer. And this may seem like going a little bit overboard, but let me show you what I'm doing and why is that. So this element renderer will be already the sprite renderer over here. I'm going to select for that any head shape. And now I'm going to place their hair. So let me find them over here. I'm going to create inside of the head another element. This time it will be hair. And now over here, whoops, I'm going to create element renderer. Of course, I could just drag and drop the hair there, for example, those ones like that. And the result would be the same. I would just have to change the name. So let's maybe do that. Beautiful. Now, first thing is obviously I have to adjust the order in layer, order in layer. And now we see that because of the pivot point, so basically if I open the hair, you see I have the pivot point everywhere in the middle. And yes, I could try to adjust it here without seeing the whole character and, you know, try to be perfect, place it where so it fits nicely on the head, and then do not have to worry about anything there. But this is a little bit hard to do, I guess, because basically you don't see your head, you don't see all other customizations and so on, so on. So instead of setting the correct position using the pivot point, I prefer to first set the position of the head, of the hair in general. So for example, I can set it over here, something like maybe, even maybe a little bit higher. So something, let's say something like that. So that will be the initial position for all hair. But of course, we already know that with long hair, there's no way it will work. So maybe it will work for this kind of works, and maybe it will work for this kind of works. But if we try to put this one, we already see it's completely out of place. So now what I'm going to do for individual hair options, and we're going to do a little bit of coding for that, we'll be storing the position modifier. So we'll be checking what is the position of the element renderer when we use this particular sprite in regards to the parent element. So in regards to this one. And this works pretty nicely. Also, having a wrapper gives us one extra benefit, which is animation. So basically, if we would like to animate hair, we can just animate this one. We can animate its position. So for example, we could do something like that in the animation. And this would change the position of hair, but the element renderer would always have constant Y position, in this case, in regards to the hair element. It will all become much clearer once we do that. You will see it on examples. Just wanted to let you know, because we'll be starting with the positions of the elements, like the position modifier from the very beginning. So I just don't want you to be surprised. Okay, so I think now we really know everything and we can get started. Okay, so we can leave the head and the head shape. Maybe let's rename it to something more general, like a customizable element. Awesome. And now what we want to do, we want to create a script. So I'm going to the scripts folder, create C# script. I'm going to call it Customizable Element, exactly the same as this one particular game object. I just think I misspelled it. Element, yes. Okay, and I'm going to open the script. Okay, so we need two lists, right, to store the customization options we have. So first one will be serialized field, private list of type of something. We'll get to that in a second. We'll call it Sprite options. And then we'll have another serialized field, private list, and this time of color. Because of course we want to change the color separately to the sprite. And let's call that color options. Beautiful. Now we need something to put over here. So I'm going to create inside of my scripts folder another class. I'm going to call it positioned sprite. Beautiful. Let's just move it to the global namespace. Okay, so first let's make it serializable, because we of course want to be able to set it through the inspector. So this is what will allow us to do that. Basically we are telling Unity, or in this case I guess in general the .NET framework, that we want to be able to serialize this particular type. Now we need to properties, so let's use this field, serialized field. And now first one will be public sprite, and that will be just simply sprite. Get private set. We don't want to be able to set it from outside. And then another one, serialized field, public vector3. That will be the position modifier. So let's call it that, position modifier. And over here, let's just keep getter and setter public. And you will see why we need setter in a second. Basically, we'll be cheating a little bit and writing small utility for us to set it from the inspector, so we'll not have to kind of copy paste it. You'll see that in a second. So we have that. And now over here in our sprite options, we can just use that type. So we called it position sprite, and we have those. Now we need to know at which index we are at this very moment. So let's create for that field, serialized field, and private int sprite index. Get private set. Of course, if I want it to be public, I need to make it public. Awesome. Then the same thing, I need another one for the color. Beautiful. Now let's create methods that allow us to go forward and backwards with the options, of course. So first one will be public and will be returning the positioned sprite. Let's call it next sprite. Over here, what it will do, it will start by changing the sprite index. And let's just use math f clamp. And now let's just do the current value. So sprite index +1, because we want to go to the next index. Then we never want it to be smaller than 0, and never we want it to be larger than the sprite options count -1. Because we'll always going just upwards, so in the higher and higher direction with the ordering, we can just change the clamp to min and get rid of that. So basically what will happen, whenever we increase the index, so for example, let's say we have 3 options, right? So the count would be 3 -1, it would be 2. So that's the last index we want to have, like 2 is the max we may have. And over here, if the sprite index is already 2, and we'll try to add 1 to it, that will be 3, basically this method will select the lower one of those, which is in this case 2. So it will be this one. If we, for example, add 1 to 0, obviously 0 + 1 is 1, and this will be lower than this one, so it will select this one. So it will work pretty nicely. What we want to do now, we'll want to update the sprite. We'll write that method in a second. And at the very end, we want to return the sprite options. And now at that particular index. Okay, let's write the update method now. So private void update sprite. Now we could create it slightly differently. So over here you see I'm not getting any parameters. I don't want to provide a sprite here and then adjust the values. Instead of that, I simply want to use the current sprite based on the current index. This is because I want to be able to call this method also in other places. We'll do that in a moment. And basically we could, this is basically, I think, the best way of going around that or about it. Now, of course, if we want to update the sprite, we want to do it on something. And in this case, our something is the sprite renderer. So private sprite renderer. Now, we could try to get it in the awake or start method, and this would be completely fine. But because we'll be doing quite a lot of testing at the beginning in the inspector using the context menu attribute, we'll want to have it basically assigned via drag and dropping in the inspector, and this will simplify quite a lot. So let's do that. And now, of course, first we want to know which sprite, or rather which positioned sprite we want. We already know that, so we can do that. Awesome. And now, as you remember, over there we have two information. So first one is the sprite. So in order to use it, we simply on the sprite renderer set the sprite to be the position sprite. Awesome. And for the position modifier, we want to simply set the transforms local position to be the position sprite, and now position modifier. As easy as that. Okay, and now because we'll be calling the update sprite also from other places, there is one more thing which we may want to do. You remember the clamp we wrote here? I think it would be worth also to have it here. So basically what we can do, we can just have here mathf clamp current sprite index between 0 and the sprite options count -1. This basically ensures that if we, for example, randomize an index or keep old index and then change the list, right? And then, for example, call the update sprite, basically we'll always have the correct value. We'll not get any exceptions. So this is pretty important. So we have that. And then we want another method for getting the previous sprite, right? So position sprite, previous sprite, sprite, and then this will be pretty similar. So we'll just want to have here -1 and 0. And over here, instead of min, max. So basically we'll always get larger of those two. So if this would be 0 already, so we are at the first available index, and we try to decrease it, so we go to -1, then the max will select 0. As simple as that. Then we update the sprite and then return the new sprite that we'll be applying. Awesome. So we have that. Let's test it. So let's add the context menu attribute. So basically what this allows us is to call this particular method from the inspector, from the script component on a particular game object. So over here we have the next sprite, and over here we have the context menu, previous sprite. Awesome. So we have those two. Let's go to Unity. So first on the element renderer, where I have the sprite renderer, I'm going to drag and drop the customizable element. Then I drag and drop the sprite renderer, and I can start setting the lists. For the sprite options, this will be pretty easy. So I'm just going to get the heads. So first one, second one, third one, and fourth one. Awesome. And now for the color, I'm going to first add first one color, and you see I'm getting this black color over here. This is pretty interesting because even if you adjust the color, it won't still work as expected because its alpha by default is set to 0. So what I like to do before I create any other colors, I always create a white over here with the max alpha of 1. And this gives me nice extra. This simplifies a little bit adding new colors, because when you add new color, it basically adds, I think, the one that is currently selected. So for example, if I would have here the alpha 0 and I would add new one, no, it adds the last added. So for example, over here now, if I have the alpha 0 and I add a new color, you will see it will be transparent too. And this is definitely not something we want. But let's just first have a look if the sprite changing works. So over here, I click right mouse button and I go next. Yay, the sprite changed. So I have 4 options. I go to this one, and now this is the last one. Nothing should happen. Great. I should get no exceptions, anything like that. Everything works. Let's go the other direction. Previous, 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 and you see everything works as expected. We don't get any exceptions. Awesome. So now let's just add changing the color. So this will be pretty similar. So public color, next color. Over here, what we want to do is to change the color index. Whoops, color index. We can just copy paste that. We'll have over here, instead of the sprite index, the color index, and over here, instead of the sprite options, we'll have the color options. Beautiful. So we have that. Then of course we'll want to update color. We'll write that in a second, and then return the color, which is the color options and the color index. Awesome. So let's just create that method. Private void update color. And this will be much simpler because it will be simply doing the sprite renderer color equals, and then the current option. Now, because we have just one line, instead of doing like a regular method, we can just use the arrow syntax, so something like that, and it's much shorter. But because we may want to add here some extra stuff, I'm going to just keep it the old way. So over here, update color, I'm going to copy this, paste it, change to the previous color. Over here do minus, over here do 0, and change min to max. And that's all, I think. Now you see those methods are pretty similar, and there are definitely better ways of writing that. It's just, I think this would require a little bit of working with delegates and this type of stuff. This tutorial is already going to be quite long. So I am sacrificing a little bit the quality of code just to show you the concept of character customization, how it works. And you can check my other tutorials if you're interested in making code slightly nicer. But yes, that's the reason there's a little bit of repetition going on here. I hope you understand that, and that's not a big problem for you. Still love you though. Okay, so we have that. And over here, we also have to have the context menu attribute. So over here, we have next color, and over here, we have previous color. Let's go over here. Now let's add few colors. So we have the white one, maybe something very dark, then something, whoa, maybe over here, then maybe orcish green, undead blue. And you can get crazy with that. So that will be, I think, more than enough colors. And now I don't want also the white one, so I'm going to just add another something maybe like that. Awesome. And now if I go to the next color, I see everything works as expected. So to make it a little bit easier to test and see different combinations, what I'm going to do is to add one extra method inside of our customizable element script. So maybe over here, just together with all the public methods, I'm going to create a method called randomize. Over here, I'm going to change the sprite index to random range 0 to the max index, which is over here. Nope, did not this one, this one. So sprite options count -1. Similarly, for the color, I'm going to do that and do that color. Awesome. So once I set those ones, now I can only call the update sprite and update color, and everything should work as expected. Now I only need to add the context menu attribute, randomize, and let's have a look how it works. Okay, so we have that, and now I should be able to call over here the randomize method, which changed the sprite index to 1 and color index to 4. Let's try once again. Color stayed the same, and okay, so we see everything works. Color index 0, sprite index 2, and so on, so on. Awesome. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is to grab the customizable element and drop it inside the prefabs folder. This turns it into prefab and allows us to make it a little bit more reusable. First of all, unfortunately, we have to remove all the settings that we have. So what I'm going to do maybe, I'm going to do a small trick. So here I'm creating empty object and copying the component. So I'm going to copy it and paste it over here. So I have to click on another component, paste, component is new, and all the values are over here. This way, if I open the prefab and just remove all the values, so this 0, this 1, and white color, then of course I want here to be white color. And because it won't be always head, I'm going to keep no sprite. And now you see, terrible thing happened. So if I go back, you see our element renderer literally got destroyed. All the values are gone, but now we have them stored in the game object. I can just copy component and paste component values, and everything's there. Awesome. I can get rid of that. Now I can just randomize it. Boom, I have beautiful head. Awesome. Okay, so what I'm going to do now, I'm going to just save the scene, drag and drop another customizable element. Maybe let's move this one over. Let's call this one the head shape, and the second one will be called her. Okay, and now inside the element renderer, I'm going to add first option. Maybe let's keep this one first because it looks very ugly, so I'm not going to use that. I'm going to add those ones. Okay, so I have several hair options over there. The colors I will add in a second, but basically let's have a look at one problem we may have with some components. We talked about that a little bit before. So the positions. If I now try to put the first sprite like that, of course first I need to adjust the ordering layer, so let's do that. Yeah, one will be fine for that. you see it's in the middle. So first, of course, I'm going to adjust the hair position as the whole wrapper object. I'm pressing W to change the tool to move tool and moving it up a little bit, something like that. Then I'm going just to move to another sprite just to see if that will work for others too. Yep, I see that it's not that bad. So this will do a good starting position. And I'm starting to circle around different sprites. So over here, I already see I have problem. So this position, so the sprite with index 2 doesn't really work with that position. Imagine that now I would have to move it down to find the right spot, something like that. For example, maybe a little bit now, that will do it. And you see I have over here this position. What I would have to do now to make it work, you remember we added the position modifier. So for the sprite index 2, so that's this one, I would have to copy, paste X value, copy, paste it. And then if I go to the previous sprite, that works. If I go to the next sprite, you see this is applied. But this is a little bit, a lot of work. So imagine that you would have to set position manually. That's all right, because that's still we have to do, but then copy paste all the values over here. We definitely not going to do that. So let's open the script. Inside of our customizable element, let's add another public method. Let's call it update sprite position modifier. And what we're going to do now, basically, we can take element from the list, the current one. So we do that, sprite index. Then we have its position modifier. And you remember we made it settable from outside. So that's what we're going to do now. And we're going to set it to transform local position. And of course we need the context menu attribute for it. So update position modifier. Awesome. So now if I go to the next sprite and I see the position is incorrect, I can adjust it, something like that, for example. Yep. And now I can simply do update position modifier. And you see it got populated over here. I go to the next sprite. Let's adjust it, maybe something like that. Again, update position modifier. Next one. That will be tough to make it work. Something like that. Yeah. Update position modifier. And then we see that if we go back, all of them work as we want them to work. Now I'm going to add colors, and I'm going to add one more component because we'll have one more interesting problem over here. And then I'm going to speed up a little bit to set all the other parts of the body, because basically the process will be literally always the same. So let's add just some colors, maybe something like that, 7 colors. Let's start with gray, something like that, then something like that. Let's maybe add a few more colors to do some more crazy colors, something like that. And let's just randomize to see how it looks. Awesome. Ooh, we're lucky, we're getting all the time the same color. Awesome. So this works. Now we have one more, as I said, interesting problem. Let me drag and drop another element. Let me put it at the bottom and let's call it nose, or maybe ear. That will be really visible on the ear. So let me just add one ear for now. Of course, we want there to be some quite high value, and of course we need to apply the sprite. Okay, I'm adjusting the ear position, maybe with slightly different hair, because this one will be problematic. So previous, yep, that will do. Okay, so here, maybe that will be all right, something like that. Now, the problem here is that we don't want to control the color of this ear separately, right? That would be strange to have even now white ear when we have this dark skin color. So let's do something about it. Inside of our script, the customizable element, I'm going to create another list, maybe under the color index over here. Let's create serialize field, private list of sprite renderers. And now I'm going to call it copy color 2. I'm going to grab this one. And when we update the color of this particular element, and there are any elements in the list, so if the copy color 2 count is larger than 0, what we want to do is to iterate through all of these sprite renderers there. So we can do copy color 2 for each, and then we can on that sprite renderer, not SP but SR, change the color to the one we are already using. So we can grab this var color, or maybe let's call it new color. Use this over here and over here. Now, because for each will not run if we have no elements in the list, let's keep it without the if statement. So we have that. Let's go to the inspector, or rather editor, and on our head shape, let's add new element to the copy color 2 list. One element, ear, and then on the ear itself we may want to remove the color, just because we won't need it. And now when we change the color of the head, so over here, randomize, we see that the ear color is adjusted. I'm very lucky, I'm very often getting the same colors. Beautiful. So this works as expected. Now I'm going to speed up a little bit, because what I will do, I will literally repeat the steps for all the rest of the elements I have. Okay, so I'm done with setting up all of the customizable elements. Now there are a few points I wanted to show you. First one is that I realized at a certain point that I haven't mentioned it, but no value when it comes to the sprite is also a valid value. For example, over here we have this character with hair. And for example, if we go now to the previous sprite, you see it's bald because having no hair is also alright, right? The same thing for bird, mustache, this type of stuff. So we not always want to have a certain type of element on our character, and keeping the value to null will allow us to do exactly that. So this is one thing. Then I also realized that when we have some elements which do not have their own color, like nose, you see over here we have the no colors. If I try to randomize them, basically I will get the exception. So the exception will be happening over here in the update color. So what we can do to prevent that is, of course, as over here, when we update sprite, we are clumping the index. We can do the same thing over here for the color index. So color index, sprite index also change to the color index. Now not sprite options, but rather color options. And if I think correctly, this should be all right. Also, I think we could do one extra thing, because sometimes we may have the list empty, right? So what we may want to do here is when we have nothing, so if the sprite options count equals 0, then we simply want to return. And maybe we want to even do it in the first line. The same over here. If our color options are empty, we don't want to do anything. So let's just move back over here, clear the errors, and let's now try to randomize it. So randomize, we have new beautiful nose and no exceptions. This is what we want. Now to test it properly, would be good to have a script which will allow us to randomize all of the elements at once. So let's do that. We go back to the scripts folder, create new script. Sorry, checking microphone. And now let's call it Customization Randomizer. Let's open it. And over here we'll have just one method called randomize. And this method will grab all of the customization elements or customizable elements. So elements, get components in children, customizable element. So this will get all the customizable elements in children objects. Pretty straightforward. And now we can iterate for them. So for each var element in elements, and each of those elements should be randomized. And of course, because we want to invoke it from the inspector, we just add the context menu attribute. So randomize all. Let's get back to Unity, and on our head object, let's add this beautiful script. And let's see what will happen. Randomize all. Woohoo! So let's maybe move to the game window. Let's adjust the camera a little bit, so something like that. You see, I have some pixels missing, so I hope that doesn't spoil the tutorial too much, but yeah, I should pay a little bit more attention when preparing my sprites. So let's check, okay, let's check that. So that should be in the center. Now let's just get it a little bit closer. And maybe over here. Beautiful. And now let's have a look at different heads. So Awesome. Works pretty well. So what we're going to do now will be adding the UI. Okay, so I'm going to start by creating new canvas. So going to UI, canvas, enter. Now I'm going to enable gizmos just to see what is going on. So now now I double clicked on the canvas and this allowed me to see it all on the screen. If you would like detailed tutorial about UI, I have released one recently. It's not that long, but it goes through all of the most important stuff, and you can see the link somewhere there above. And so I will still try to explain everything quite thoroughly, but in case you would like to know more or you don't understand why something works a certain way, you can go to that tutorial for more information. Okay, so I have canvas. Inside of that canvas, I'm going to create empty object. I'm going to call it left panel. And now I'm going to change its pivot preset to stretch on the left side. In order to move the component straight away and set its pivot point, I press the Shift and Alt at the same time. So beautiful. It's on the left. Now 100 pixels is a little bit too little for me, so I'm going to increase it to 350. Awesome. Now, because I want those components or those sections, like we'll have, of course, name of the thing we change, like for example, head shape. Then we'll have sprite to select, so 2 arrows for selection, and then we'll have 2 arrows for the color. So those will be grouped, and of course I will want all groups going vertically one by one. So in order to make it a little bit more automatic, I'm going to set to add the component called vertical layout group. This will basically help me arrange the elements vertically. So I have that. Now inside of the left panel, I create another empty object, and this time I'm going to call it customization picker. Beautiful. Now, I cannot do much with it, especially in terms of the preset, anchor preset, because as you see over here, some values are driven by vertical layout group. So if I wanted to be stretching horizontally from end to end, I can go to the left panel, and you see we have this child force expand. This is one thing, but also control child size. This will make sure that basically if we have multiple components, so for example, let me just copy paste it. So you see we have 3 components, we have child force expand, so all of those components are expanded to take as much space as possible, but they are not stretched, and this is what we want to happen in the horizontal axis. So we go to the left panel once again, and over here check the control child size width. And now if we have a look at our panels or empty objects, we see they are stretched nicely horizontally, and this is what we want. So we can get rid of those 2 extra objects. Inside of that object, we once again want to add the vertical layout group. And now inside of it, we create simple text. Oops, not button, my bad. We create text mesh pro. Now, it looks a little bit boring. So what we can do, we can go down, and over here in the face settings, we can de-elate it a little bit, so it will be a little bit bolder. And now, because of that, we can also add the outline. And this straight away looks a little bit more interesting. Now you may be wondering why I set outline after dilate, in the sense that why I just don't have 0 here. You see the outline is applied on top of what we already have. So if I would just do that, you see I have almost no white space or no white part there. So dilate allows me to grow the letters slightly. So let's do that. Of course, let's make it centralized, or rather aligned into center, then in the middle of the component. Let me think if we want anything else now. For now, we can just put head shape over here. And also here we see it's not stretched fully, so we want on the customization picker, control child size. Beautiful. The height we can adjust ourselves, or we could do something extra, which is over here. No, I think we won't be able. So basically there is nice component in general called content size feature. And normally this would allow us to set the height. Actually, it works. I'm surprised. Basically, you shouldn't use the content size feature with the vertical group because they can try to overwrite each other's values. But I see it works, though you see we have the warning over here. So we have to be careful with using it. Probably we shouldn't be using so just to avoid any strange behavior, I'm going to remove it and just keep it manually at 40. So let's call it element name. Beautiful. And under this one, let's create another game object. Let's call it Sprite picker. Make it 40 pixels height and make it this time horizontal layout group. Let's change the child alignment to middle center, so whatever we add will be centered nicely for us. And inside of it, let's add first button. Let's call it previous. Now let's remove the text, we don't need that. And I have nice arrow for the button, so I can use this. Now, I want to check the preserve aspect, which will basically keep the image in the original aspect ratio, but this doesn't change the original size, or rather the rect size. So we have to adjust that manually too. So let's maybe do 40 by 40. Yeah, this looks nice. Let's copy paste it. Now this one will be called next. And of course I want to adjust the X scale to -1 to have the arrow facing the other side. Of course you could do it also using the rotation. Now in the middle I would like to have a text indicating which sprite I'm using. So for that I'm going to add Text Mesh Pro. Let's call it Sprite ID. Smash it in between. Change its text to something like 02 just to see how it looks. I think the size is right, but it's a little bit too high, so 40. Let's make sure it's in the center and in the middle. Awesome. And of course we don't want it to be that wide, so we can maybe 50 or 60 will work. And now of course the arrows are a little bit far away. That's because our sprite picker is expanding the width, so we don't want to do that. Now, if we think those elements are a little bit too close to each other, we can use spacing to adjust that. So for example, we can do 15 and they will be nicely apart. So this will do. Let's now have a look at our customization picker. We see that we slowly run out of space. So let's add there maybe 30 pixels more. So 130. Just to make sure the element name is 40. So if we keep everything at 40 plus give it 5 spacing between the elements, that will be nice. So customization picker. We want this 5 spacing. Of course, we want them to be centralized or central. Yeah, it's central. We want them to be at the center. Awesome. So that will do it. Now we don't want to expand in the height. And straight away we see it looks much nicer. And now we can just copy the sprite picker, paste it. Actually, it's a little bit too cramped, so I think I'm going to increase the value from 150 to 140 or maybe even 50 and change the spacing from 5 to 15 to 10. Yeah, that will do. And also maybe I'm going to increase the padding of the left panel to 20 from top, Yeah, that will do. That looks much better. Now I'm going to change the name of the sprite picker from sprite picker to color picker. And inside, instead of having the text, I want to have there a small icon that I will be adjusting the color of. So image, let's call it color icon. For the image, let's select this square over here. Set native size. It's still too big, so let's make it 40. And let's move it in between the arrows. Now, so I think it's a little bit too small, so let's make it 50-50. And I see it's a little bit blurry, the same as the buttons. So to fix that, I'm going to go to the sprites, check where I have the UI elements. I have it over here, and you see I have the filter mode set to bilinear. When I change it to point and apply the changes, suddenly the buttons and the square are nice and sharp. Okay, so I think that will actually do. Let me save the scene. And now let's write small script. So maybe first, why we want script. Of course, we need to change the text and we need to change the color of the box. But I'm sure there would be a way to do it just using the inspector, drag and dropping stuff. Let me give you an example. So over here we have the sprite picker, we have the previous and next buttons, which have the on-click events. So we could, because now if we try to add, for example, let's try to associate it with the head shape element over here. If we try to call the next color, or in this case previous sprite, we see the method is not here. That's because the method to show up there has to return void. So we would have to get rid of that and make those void. This is not a big problem because we are not using anywhere those values. So great. Now we have it somewhere here. So previous. Now we can just call the previous sprite. For next we can call, once again, drag and drop this and call next sprite, save it, start the game, and you see the head shape is changing, which is what we expect. But now imagine that we had to do that much drag and dropping for just two buttons. Now we would have to do the same thing for color, and then we would have to do all the steps for one after the other of for all of those different elements. And this would be a lot of work, basically, if they would be children. So for example, the UI elements would be part of the head shape or element renderer. Once we create a prefab out of it, basically those values would stay set in relation to that component above them. But now, because they are completely independent, they are literally siblings. So the canvas and the head are siblings in our hierarchy. I don't think there is a way to turn them into prefab and kind of keep relation. I mean, this wouldn't make sense because if I add, I can without any problem now add another customizable element without adding the customization picker. So basically there is no way I could automatically associate them. So we are going to write small script, which will basically populate a lot of fields for us and make the process a little bit less time consuming. Okay, so first I'm going to the scripts folder and creating new script. Let's call it UI underscore customization picker. Beautiful. Okay, now I drag and drop the script on the customization picker and open it. First thing is we need references to all of the buttons, right? So serialize field, private button. We want to use the one from the namespace UI. So UI button. Awesome. Let's call it previous sprite button. Then we want another one for the next sprite button, then 2 more for the colors. Awesome, we have that. Now let me think. We'll want to adjust the text. So TMP text in the TMP Pro namespace. So we have to remember to have the using statement. Okay, let's call it Sprite ID. Then serialized field, this time for image. Now image also we want from the UI namespace, not the UI elements. Let's call it color icon. Now we want, of course, to get it based on some customization element, or rather customizable element. So we want reference to that too. So private customizable element, customizable element. Awesome. Okay, now when we start, first thing we want to do is to subscribe to some events. So on the previous sprite button, there will be the on click, and we want to add listener. Over here, we'll create a delegate. So now we can define set of actions we want to happen. Of course, the first thing we want when we click the previous sprite button is on our customizable element to call the previous sprite method, of course. Then we want to adjust the sprite ID text. So for that, let's use the sprite ID set text, and now we want to set it to customizable element. Let me think, sprite index to string, and now we want to pad it left to be always 2 characters long, and we want to pad it with zeros. Awesome. So I think for the previous sprite button, that should be it. Now, this seems like something we'll want to do also for the next. So let me just create a method for that. Update sprite ID. So we'll do that. And let's copy paste this one for the next sprite button. Customizable element, next sprite. And of course, we want to update the sprite ID text. So this will probably serve everything that should happen regarding the sprite buttons. Let's test it. So to the customization picker, I already added the UI customization picker script. Now, the customizable element we want to associate it with is the head shape. So let's drag and drop it here. For the previous sprite button, we have this. For the next, we have this. Let's set up straight away the ones for the colors. Now, over here we have the sprite ID text, and over here we have the color icon. Let's start the game. Let's just do one more thing, because I think we haven't exactly. So over here we have on the sprite picker, we have those old events that we were testing. So let's remove them just to make sure everything works as expected. And then on the customizable element, let's just restore the return values and the return statements. Now let's start the game, and the head shape changes. We see the values get updated correctly. Just we had small problem. When the game started, the value had incorrect value. So let's fix that too. And this will be pretty easy, because on our UI customization picker, we already have this method, and we use the current index on the customizable element. So what we can do, we can simply call it inside the start method. So this will work. Now let's straight away adjust the color icon color when we change the color. So for the previous color button, on click, let's add listener. And what are the actions we want to do? Over here, it will be just one action, which will be, let me think, let's maybe create a method for that too. Private void update color icon. And this one will be much simpler. So we'll have the color icon color. And over here, we just grab the color from the customizable element. Currently, it is not available for us, so let's expose it. We have the customizable element, and somewhere here we have the fields and properties. Okay, great. So we have color, copy color 2. So this is a good place for the color. So let's do. Really, we don't have it? No, we didn't add that. So public color current color, and we want to simply return the color options color index. We probably should do some validation. So let's maybe do that. Instead of returning directly that, let's do that. If our color options count is 0, then let's return color white. And otherwise, let's return what we were returning before. So color options, color index. And I think this will be pretty a little bit better. Let's just turn it to the ternary operator, then to expression bodied property. So this is exactly the same thing, just written in one line. So now we can over here use the current color. And we can do that over here. Okay, so first, of course, we want to call it at start to have the right color. And now, when previous color button has been clicked, so on click, at listener, first we want to set next color, so next color, and then we of course want to update the color icon. Then we want to copy that and do next color button. Awesome. Whoops, over here of course it should be previous. And this will do. This should work correctly. Let's have a look. Okay, we already set up all the references on the script. So now it should be as simple as just testing if it works. So we see the values are set correctly. Let's just validate that. Over here we have the sprite index 1, which is the correct one, and the color we see it's also correct. If we change the color, it gets updated as expected, and the face, or rather head shape, is also adjusted as expected. Awesome. That means we can convert the customization picker to the prefab. Okay, so is that all? Yes. So the interesting thing is now if I drop it over here and open the prefab, you see everything besides the customizable element is already set for us. So this will be really, really much quicker to use. So now I can just change this one to head picker. Let's just place over here the second one. Let's call it hair picker. Let's adjust the name. Of course, we don't like this separation. So on the left panel, let's have a look at the vertical layout group. Over here, we have this child force expand. We disable height, and let's add a little bit of spacing. I think 30, maybe even 50. Yeah, 50 will do. However, we need 4 elements. No, we don't, because we won't care about the colors later on. So we have those ones. For the hair, let's just grab the hair element. Beautiful. Then, do we have anything else that we need to adjust the color of? No. So now look at the magic. We grab another customization picker. Let's call it ear picker. Of course, let's adjust the name. So ear. And now we don't need the color picker. So what we can do, we can simply, there are a few ways to go about that. I think the most reusable, especially that we'll need quite a lot of those, will be to create a separate prefab of that. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to unpack it completely, remove the color picker from that. Then the ear element is a little bit too high for that. So what I'm going to do is to change this to 120, maybe even 100. Yeah, 100 will do. And you see, we have only ear, or so the name, and the sprite selection. And now I'm going to drag and drop this one and rename it to customization picker, no color. Awesome. Ear picker. Let's set its customization, or rather customizable element. We don't need those ones, right? So not missing, but rather none. We can actually override those values too. So apply all. So it won't be highlighting that. So we have that. For now, it will be, we can just copy paste it. Let's rename this one to nose, or rather eyes, picker, element name, eyes. And again, renderer will be this one. And let's see, let's save it and let's see if everything works as we would like it to work. Well, we have some exceptions. So ear picker and the other picker complain that there is no color icon to update. Of course, because we try to update it on the in the start method. So we definitely should do some checks over here. So this maybe whole section. So let's keep this section related to sprite and this section related to color over here. And now we can simply do if color icon not null, then let's do the color related stuff. Let's just clear the errors and start the game once again. Okay, so we have no exceptions. The head shape works as expected. Colors over here as well. Ears, we can change the ears. Awesome. Eyes. Awesome. I just realized that eyes actually should have the color picker. So let's fix that. Let's just change their places. Or maybe let's completely remove the eyes picker. And just drag and drop this over here. Then we don't have place for ear. That's not a problem. We'll move it to the second column. So over here, let's change the name to the eyes. Then customization picker will be the eyes picker. And of course, we want reference to that. Now straight away let's create another panel. So I'm creating new object, right panel. Once again, I'm holding Alt and Shift to attach it to the right canvas border, 350 to have it at the same size. Let's have a look at the left panel, maybe copy the component so we don't have to set it up all by ourselves. Rect transform, paste, component as new, boom, we have it over here. And instead maybe of upper left, let's align them to the upper right. It will not change anything because we expanded the width, so this won't have any visual effect really, but just for just to keep it clean. Now we can move the ear picker to the right panel, and let's just set it up for the rest of the elements very quickly. So we have ears, so those ones, and we need one for nose, so one for mustache, bird, and the eyebrows, so 5, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 more, yes. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Uh-oh, almost no space. So over here we need to decrease the spacing to something like 20, maybe 30. Awesome. So ear picker, then we have nose picker. Let's change that over here. Nose. Over here we have the let me think, mustache picker. Then we have ear picker, will be changed to bird picker. And lastly, we have the eyebrow picker. Okay. Whoops. I don't know what I'm moving. I'm moving this one, right? Okay, let's just... Now, I think in general, to keep it nice and clean, it would be good to have those ones set up from the top to the bottom. So it's very strange to have eyebrows at the very end. So let me just move this one at the top. Ear and nose are okay, mustache and bird are alright too. So let me save it. Then also on the left panel, I don't like them to be at the top, so I'm going to move it to the middle center. And then this also allows me to remove the padding. So this will make them a little bit more central. And for this one, I'm going to actually do exactly the same thing. This way, they will be always in the middle. So let's test it now. We have red eyes, which is not correct. That was interesting. Oh, I think I know what happened. Basically, we had a different color set on the character. So let me basically, if I do now that and change to any value, basically this index is not aligned with what's on the character. So what I need to do is basically even just randomize the eyes. And now when we start the game, everything will work. Yes, so you see, all good there. So we can adjust the eyes, something like that, for example. We can adjust the hair. Oh, looks funny. I love it. Okay, then eyebrows. Like that. Ear. They don't work too well with this type of hair. So maybe let's change her to those ones, and then bird this. He looks like me now. Awesome. So everything works as expected. Now let's add a little bit of flash to it. So let's animate the character, and then let's see how we can store this information. Because obviously when we play the game, we want to retrieve somehow the setup of the character. But maybe before we start animating the character, let me adjust some minor things so the UI looks slightly nicer. Let's first go to one of the prefab. So we can go to there two ways. We can either open it over here, right, by clicking in the prefabs folder, or we can just open any prefab directly here. So for example, we have the head picker. If we click over here, we get there. Now, if we are in the scene window, we'll see this grayed out view indicating what we are looking at. So when we have this sprite ID, or in general this sprite picker, I think we could make it a little bit wider, or rather a little bit higher. So that's first thing. Then, because of that, we could also adjust the font size. Something like that maybe, but then we'll require a little bit of extra space. So let's make it 80 by 60. This already looks a little bit better. Now I think the outline is a little bit too thin, so let's add a little bit of a little bit of thickness to it, so it matches the border of the buttons. I think we can even go maybe with a little bit more dilate, a little bit of outline, and let's see if underlay can also help us a little bit. So if we try over here, nope, it won't work that nice as I wanted. Terrible. Or maybe we can, no, it can be either normal or inner. So let's leave that. This will be already a little bit better. Then let's adjust the size of the buttons. So we can select both of them. Let's make them 60 by 60. Maybe a little bit too big, so maybe 50 by 50. Yeah, that will do. Then I think we can decrease the spacing a little bit. Yeah, this looks much better. And I think now also the head element, or rather the element name, could be slightly better. So let's maybe make it a little bit bigger. Let's make it bold. Let's see how it would look only with capital letters. Do we like it or we don't? Now I think it was better without that. So let's keep that this way. And I think this already made a huge difference. Maybe even let's take this and make it bold too. And let's crop them a little bit more. So inside of the customization picker, instead of having such a huge spaces between them, let's maybe do something like that. And how it looks like now, I think slightly better. So let's just adjust those ones too. Okay, so how we can do it quickly? Let me think. I think the best way will be to go inside of any of those ones, copying the sprite picker and element name, getting into one of those, pasting those, then replacing them and just adjusting the names. And then we have to adjust those ones. So previous button, next button, and the sprite ID. And now, it's changed the text of all. Of course, it cannot be easy. So let's quickly adjust that. Luckily, we have the names over here, so we don't have to search which one is what. So over here, eyebrows. Over here, we have ears. Over here, we have nose, mustache, and bird. Let's just double check if everything works as it worked before. Would be very sad if not. Yay, everything works. And I think it looks much better now. Now let's move to our character. Let's see how it looks like in relation to the camera. Let me move the global light so it doesn't get in our way. So let's make maybe, let's go a little bit further with the character. So maybe something like that. 275, yeah, will do. Now let's move head a little bit higher. And let's prepare small stage for our character. So over here I have some elements prepared. That can be here. Maybe something over here. Okay. Okay, let me grab those ones and scale them up a little bit. So over here, I think even a little bit more. Awesome. Then we need to adjust a little bit position of those elements. Okay, so this will do. And now we need to create the rest of our character. So I'm going to create new empty object, call it character. Over here I have some sprites, so body. Let's put it here. Then I have legs, so legs can be separate from the body, so over here we want to move this one somewhere to the front, so either separate layer or high ordering layer. Yeah, that will do. Left leg and right leg. Now the cape, so over here and over here, this will be free. Awesome. And now we need to animate it a little bit. Let's just cape top, cape bottom. Let's also move the head over here and let's just place it over here. The head should have its own sprite group somewhere. Let's have a look. Sorting group, yes. And this will make them all the elements of the head, all the sprite renderers work together nicely. I have a tutorial about that somewhere there. It's pretty a nice thing that will help you to work with the components, or rather with different sprites, how to sort them and this type of stuff. So pretty convenient thing. Now, animation. Let me just make it smaller so we know what we work with. Okay, so we want animation on our character. So let's make it in the animation folder. Character idle. And over here, this will be very simple animation. First, we want a small head bob. So over here, like that, maybe. Let's see. That will work. Awesome. And now when the head goes down, or maybe over here, let's just rotate a little bit the cape. So over here and over here. I hope it's not too strong. So over here, let's move it like that, and then this like that, just a little bit. And then we can grab those at the first frame and put them over here. Let's see how it looks like now. Awesome, I think that will do it. Maybe we can also move body a little bit down over here, just slightly. But and over here, this copy, paste over here, and we have simple idle animation. which will work also during the character customization. So we don't have to do anything else, but look how much life and this extra feeling it gives to the game. Awesome. So we have that. Let's maybe also try it on different aspect ratios. Yeah, works. Not that bad. And we didn't set up anything and we didn't adjust any settings or anything like that. So that's great. Let's go back to the scene. The camera cannot stay this way. This looks just terrible. So let's just make something simple, like grayish background. I think this will do much better. And I feel the text and everything is a little bit too strong, too big. So we can go to canvas and try to adjust it by changing the scale factor. So scale factor is one thing. We could also try to change the UI scale mode from constant pixel size to scale with screen size, and then adjust it to something a little bit larger. Yeah, that's more or less where we were, right? We could maybe go something like that. How does it look now? Oh, much better. Much better. Okay. So this will do it. Basically what I've done, this setting, the UI scale mode, normally is set to constant pixel size, which doesn't scale the elements of the UI when the screen size changes. This one, the scale with screen size, basically scales the element depending on the screen width or height. So here we have the slider, and basically over here we have the screen width like reference. So this is the default. Whatever we see on the screen now, right, is for this particular reference or this particular screen size. So yeah, this will work because I have it set to width, and my width is set to 1440. And this allows me to, you see, you've seen how quick it was to resize the whole UI. So this is just excellent. Okay, so I think we have that. Let's play it. And let's see if everything works still with the animations. Whoops, I see because I was fixing the sprites when you haven't seen it, and I messed up a little bit this head shape by adding extra pixels at the bottom, but I think everything else looks a little bit better. So now let's add small randomize button at the top. This will be pretty simple because we already have a method for randomizing head. So over here, I'm just going straight in the canvas, add a UI button, call it randomize. For the text, I'm going to, of course, write randomize, make it white. For the buttons image, I'm going to select over here. I'm going to select simple image like maybe that. Just it doesn't look too good now. I need to increase the pixels per unit multiplier. So basically what is happening, this particular sprite has been set up slightly differently. So over here in the UI sprite, you see I dragged those yellow lines. So when you, the green lines. So over here, you see I have those green dots and I can move them. And this, what this will do, this will basically slice the image into the corners, sides and central position. And then this information is used for stretching the UI element. And of course, if you want to know more, I have this tutorial about the UI I mentioned earlier. Just wanted to mention that that's what's happening there. That's the reason this particular sprite doesn't behave like the others. That's because basically you see this image type is not set to simple as it would be usually, but it was set automatically to sliced because it was sub-sliced kind of in the sprite editor, and now I can basically adjust the pixels per unit multiplier to set how big the borders should be. And now I also want to make it a little bit higher. Well, not that high, but maybe 50. Yeah, that will work. Let me see how it looks in whole canvas. Yeah, that will do it. Maybe let's also move it over here. And let's give it like 20, -20 position from the top. Awesome. So now we need to connect functionality to it, and this will be also pretty easy. So I click on the button, and over here, as you remember, there's this onClick event. I click plus, and I need to find our head component, or rather game object, because as you remember, it has the customization randomizer script on it. So once again, randomize button, drag and drop head over here, and then simply call randomize. So let me save it, start the game, and let's see if it works. Awesome. The only problem is now, you see when I call randomize, the text or anything like that doesn't get updated. So would be good to handle that too. Okay, so inside of our canvas, let's first create another empty object and let's call it something general regarding the whole customization UI. And I think actually customization UI will be a good name for it. So customization UI. Let's drag it at the very top. And now let's make it occupy the whole space. So once again, Alt, Shift, and click over here. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to grab all the elements of our customization UI over here inside the customization UI. Great. So now we have additional level of grouping and nothing really changed inside of the canvas visually. So this is pretty convenient. Why I'm doing that? Because we don't really have any individual way or any easy way to update the sprite ID and sprite color icon. So this will allow us to have a common parent over all of the pickers that will be able to just grab the component from children. And this is exactly what we're going to do now. So I'm going to go to the scripts, create new script, call it UI, customization UI. I'm going to grab it and smash on our new game object. Awesome. I'm going to open the script. And at the very top, create private list of the UI customization pickers. Let's call it pickers. In the start method, very easy. I'm going, of course, to get all the components in children of type UI customization picker. And of course it complains because this is an array and this is a list. So we can simply fix that using method toList. Awesome. So at this very moment, when the game starts, we'll already have all the pickers in one place. Now we can simply create a method, public void, let's call it update pickers state. And we can simply call their methods. So let's just iterate through all of them. We can do it using the for each picker. And now we have to use two methods. Unfortunately, they are currently private. So let's go and fix that. Let's go to UI customization picker. And over here we have the update sprite ID and update color icon. Let's move them to public. Awesome. And now inside of the UI customization UI, let's just call the picker update sprite ID and update color icon. Let's save it. And now this method can be easily called from the button. So after we randomize everything. So let me just get the button. So under the randomization is finished, let's also update the picker's state. Let's save it and let's have a look if it works. Beautiful. Just we see that the ears, nose, mustache and bird somehow don't like us. So let's have a look what's going on. I see we get the exception. 68 line. Okay, so it doesn't like the ones that do not have color. And that means, of course, not color, but color pickers. So on those, let's just adjust, or maybe for both of them, if we call those methods, we should ensure that the component is there. So if sprite ID equals null, then return. And over here, the same thing, if color icon is null, then return. Let's see if that fixed our problem. So I'm going to clear the errors and yay, all good. So now we are ready to store the character data. First of all, if we want to assemble our character, we need to know which element renderer, or rather which customizable element, is responsible for which part of the character. And so to have this association, I think we can create simple scriptable object. So I'm going to create C# script and maybe let's call it customization type. I'm going to open this script and make it scriptable object. Awesome. Now it doesn't need really any data because the name itself will be the type. So we just add the create asset menu attribute, which will allow us to create instances of this scriptable object. I'm going back to Unity, to the assets folder, and over here I'm creating a new folder and call it Scriptables. Inside of it, I start creating the customization types for each different element that we have. So head, hair, ear, eyes, then we have nose, mustache, bird, and the eyebrows. Awesome. Now we need a way to place this type on our customizable element script. This will be pretty simple. We can simply go to the customizable element script and at the very top add a field. Let's call it type. Okay, so now we have extra property in the inspector on each of the renderers. So let's just fill those fields or properties. So for head, it will be head. For hair, it will be hair. For ear, it will be ear. For eyes, of course, eyes. Nose. Mustache. Bird. And eyebrows. Awesome. I'm going to save it just to be on the safe side. And now we need something that will store this particular association, so the type, with the selection we made. So this will be pretty simple. What we can do is create another script. Let's call it customization data. And this one will not even have to be monobehavior or scriptable object. So let's remove everything that we don't need. Let's make it serializable. And then we want it to have multiple pieces of information. So first one will be the customization type. Type, let's call it type. Then of course, we want to store the information about our position sprite. And of course, information about the color we want to set to that particular sprite. So, and all of this information will be populated from the customizable element. But in order to kind of conveniently create instances of this customization data, we can create a constructor. So public customization data, and let's make it have 3 parameters. So customization type, then the position sprite, and the color. And then let's just assign those values, sprite and color C. Awesome. Now we can go to our customizable element and create a public method that will create for us this customization data. So public customization data, get customization data, as simple as that. And now we can simply return the new customization data with those 3 parameters. So we have the type because we just added it. So it will be this. Then we also have information about the sprite that was selected. So we can use for that sprite options with the sprite index. And now for the color, we have to do a small trick because not all of the sprites have their own colors. Some use the color of another customization element. So for that, we can get the color from the sprite renderer. Then we'll be sure that it is always there and it's always the one that has been applied. So we have that. So this is pretty convenient because we can just loop through all of them, through all of the different options and gather all the data and put it in one place. This one place will be another class, or rather another scriptable object. Let's call it customized character. Awesome. So let's first make it scriptable object. And as we said, we want to store there all our customization data. So list of customization data, data. Awesome, we have that. Now we need a smart way of populating this, right? So, because this action will be happening very rarely. This is not something that will be going on in loop or anything like that. We can cheat a little bit and use the find object of type. We could, of course, do it differently, but I think in this situation we can get away with that because, as I say, this is something that will happen just once when we create the character. So let's just create a method, public void gather customization data. We can use the find objects of type customizable element, and this will return for us an array of all customizable elements. Now what we can do, we can iterate through all of them. So let's first maybe create a list. So let's make sure that this field has empty list inside. And now let's iterate through the customizable elements for each. And let's now on each of them use the method that we created. So data add element get customization data. And this will allow us to gather everything as we would like to. We also need to recreate the character using this data. And for that, we can use the public void recreate character. And of course, over here, this is a little bit more complicated because we somehow have to associate these sprite renderers with the type of the customization data, right? And then set on that sprite renderer specific element from the list. So over here, I think the most convenient way to work with that will be to create one extra helper object, or maybe even regular mono behavior. So customized character element. Let's make it mono behavior. And great. So this will require information about the customization type, right? So let's do that. Whoops, this should be public. This will allow us to identify which sprite renderer is which, right? And then private sprite renderer, void start, on start. Let's set this. So let's sprite renderer get component. And now let's go, of course, sprite renderer. Here we can also have a reference. So let's serialized field, private, customized character. And once we have that, we can use the data from our customized character, right? So what we can do, having the type, we can filter element from this list. So we don't actually need this method. We can simplify it a little bit. I just realized that my initial idea wasn't that good. So I will need access to that from outside. So let's make it into the property. So serialized field, data, or maybe just to keep it, oh, beautiful. It automatically rename it for me. So great. Let's have that. Of course, I need to make it public and then something like that. And over here, I can grab the data from the character and find first or default. So first or default data where its type is equal to my type. So that will give me the customization option when the types will be aligned. So this is awesome. And now I can simply start applying this information. So for the sprite renderer color, I can use the customization color. For the sprite renderer sprite, of course I can use customization sprite. And then for the transform local position, I can use customization sprite and position modifier. Now, as we see here, we get warning that the customization may be null. And this is true because we may not find a match, and basically then in this case we'll get null. So we have to check if customization is not null, or rather we can simply check if it's null, and if so, to return. This way we will not try to change anything on the character if we don't find the matching customization. So this will allow us to build the character, and now we need a way to store all the information, or rather to gather the information. So I'm not sure you remember, we have the customization randomizer. Because this is on our head, we could actually rename it a little bit to something like, this is hard. Maybe simply character customization, or maybe customizable character, because it's at the top of our structure, right? So this may not be perfect name, but it will do for now. So we have method to randomize, and now we can also create a method to store the information about the character. So store customization information. Over here, we also need reference to the character that we'll be storing it on, right? Because this stores the list of the customization data, right? So this is scriptable object, which we'll have created already in the inspector manually, or not inspector, but rather in the editor. So we'll have instance of this, which will be passed on another scene to be recreated. But now I just realized we don't need that too. We can actually make it nicer. So because this will be on our central component, we can simply provide it here the private customized character. And that will be the actual character that we want to customize, right? So we'll drag and drop this one. And then, because this has a list on it, what we can do, we can once again get this list, or so this part will be exactly the same because we want to get all the customizable elements and then iterate through all of them. So what we can do, we can now use this get customization method we created and add the result of that to data on the character. And this will ensure that all of the customization options are stored on the character. The only thing that we have to make sure over here is that our data is clear. So basically we have to clear the list before we add anything, because we may already store there something and then have, for example, free informations about how to display the head, right? And this would be a little bit, we would have to decide what to do with that. So we have that. We can use that on the button. This will pass the information to our character object. So let's now create the instance of the character. So in scriptables, we can create, whoops, I think we forgot exactly. So let's go here. We forgot the create asset menu attribute. So we have that. And let's create player character. Awesome. That means that now on our head, where we have the customizable character thing, which was previously the randomizer, we can set the player character. And now we can just create a new button. So over here we have the randomize button. Let's move it a little bit. Let's copy paste it, move it over here, and let's rename it to something like done. Over here, let's change the text to done. And as the action, instead of doing the things that were here, we can call the heads store customization information. Now we can test it very easily because we have this player character scriptable object. If we start the game now, we can randomize the items, and now we still see that the player character data is empty. If we click done now, we see that we have all of this information over here. So we see that the hair type matches, definitely. The skin matches, the eyes match too. So over here, we see that the head shape is definitely this one. So everything works as expected. This is just awesome. So we have that. Now let me stop. And you see, this is the interesting thing, because it's scriptable object. When we stop the game, this data keeps or stays there. So basically, if we would try to click done once again, we would add the 8 options once again. So now, instead of that, we basically clear the list first and then add the item to it. So we have this data over here. Let's now recreate the character in completely separate scene. Okay, so of course, I need to start by creating new scene. So file, new scene. And I want a simple 2D URP. this will do. Now, I need to create this little setup, and I think it will be actually a little bit easier to base it on what I already have in the previous scene. So I'm going to save this one in the scenes, like let's call it game scene. Then let's move to the previous one, so to the sample scene. And the structure will be pretty similar to what I have here. So I'm going to copy the character object, move to the game scene, paste it, focus on it. And now let's disable gizmos for a second. What I want, on each of those, I want to make them not prefab. That's first thing. Then each of the element renderers doesn't need to have the customizable element script. Done. Removed. Now, all of them need another script, which we created a moment ago. And let me just think which one was it. It's the customized character element. So it looks like customizable is what is before, and then customized is what we already have and already created. So on all of those, let's add the customized character element. Now, all of them need reference to the character. So I'm going to Scriptables, once again selecting all of those and setting the reference to the player character. Now for each of those, I of course need also to add the type. Awesome. Now, if I start the game now, in this particular setup, let's see what will happen. You see some data got populated. I just don't remember what was there. Yeah, it looks like it's data from this character, so it's pretty much working. Let me just check. Yes, everything happens on start. So if we save this scene, go back to the sample scene, and we'll need one extra method. This will be very ugly, what I will do now, but this is just to move us to another scene, just to see if everything works. Right, so I'm going to go to the... where do I have the customizable character? Over here. So after this thing is done, right, so after we store all of the information, what I'm going to do, I'm going to move us straight away to the second scene. So let's do that. Scene manager, load scene, and let's move it to the game scene. Awesome. Of course, we need to add our scene in the build settings. So over here we add open scenes, so this one is there. And then we also drag and drop the game scene. Awesome. So we have both of them there. Let's start this scene. And let's create our character. Or maybe let's start by randomizing it. So that will do. I will just adjust something to see if manual changes are moved. So the things that I want to remember, I have this type of hair and this type of bird. I'm going to give him glasses just so I remember that. So over here, awesome. And I'm going to make the glasses blue. Now, if I press done, I moved to completely different scene. As you remember, you see now I'm in the game scene, and you see all the changes that we've done are applied to the character, and this is already ready to use in game. If you like this tutorial, if you found it useful, I would really appreciate if you could subscribe to my channel, maybe leave a comment, and if you really think this tutorial is nice, maybe share it with some friends. This will definitely help me a little bit. Also, just a small reminder, if you would like to get all of those files, they will be available on my Patreon for all of my patrons. So please feel invited to get there and enjoy the files. Not only those, because there are some other systems already built based on my other tutorials, and there are some other extras which are not available anywhere else, and the list will be definitely growing. But meanwhile, have a fantastic day. Love you and bye bye.